Hey guys, this is Amity coming at you from the Corvid Cache, and today I'm going to be showing off my black deck profile. I did say I was going to have it up last week, and I do apologize. The post service has been awful to deal with, and I finally got everything in, so I figured I would go ahead and show it off. I've only played it locally so far, but it has done very well locally. And I'm hoping to be able to play some more big events with it now that I have everything. But as soon as I have results with that, I will post that as well. But to go ahead and get started here, we're going to be playing for Kapurimon. Kapurimon's effect is an inherited effect, and while the Digimon has Reboot, it gets power plus 1000. And before I kind of explain how I play this one, I'll go ahead and show off the 5th egg. It's going to be Sumemon. While you have another Digimon with the same name, it gets power plus 2000. So typically you are going to have a Digimon with Reboot more often than you're going to have a Digimon with the same name. There are times that same name will happen, and it's super good when it does, but you're going to want Kapurimon over that normally, so you can hit certain thresholds and things like that I will go over later in the video. But yeah, that is going to be it for the Digi-Eggs. We're going to have 4 of one of the deck's MVPs, Gotsumon. He is a 3000 DP, 3 to play, 0 to Digivolve, blocker. So that means whenever your opponent attacks, you can suspend this Digimon to force the attack onto him. He is very useful late game, and even mid game whenever they are coming at you quick, trying to just deal with as much security as possible. You just play him. You don't typically attack with him because of his second effect, but having a 3000 powered blocker is very good. His second effect is when attacking, lose 2 memory. It is kind of an incentive not to attack with them and block them instead, but being a level 3 blocker, you're typically going to be blocking anyway. So next up, we have 4 of normally your go-to Digivolve is going to be Toy Agumon. He's a 1000 DP, 3 to play, 0 to Digivolve into, level 3, with the inherited skill Reboot. That lets you unsuspend the Digimon during your opponent's unsuspend phase. This allows you to attack with your blockers and then stand back up in order to block their attacks the next turn with little to no repercussions. This is very good for control. You can attack their security or their rested Digimon in order to put them in a more difficult situation. And like I said, I'll go over some plays and good uses for Toy Agumon at the end of the video. And to round out our level 3s, we have Hagurumon. Hagurumon is your typical 3000 DP, 2 to play vanilla. If you're not Digivolving into Toy Agumon, you typically will be Digivolving into Hagurumon, or you can just play Hagurumon out in order to start a Digivolution chain and get some cards into your hand. And that is going to round out our level 3s. Our level 4s are going to start off with one of the most powerful level 4s, in my opinion, in the game at this point, Gardramon. Gardramon is a 7000 DP level 4 that is 5 to play, 3 to Digivolve into. He has blocker, and also, during your turn, it cannot attack. Typically, that's not going to matter too much because you're going to play him down and just block with him as much as possible. 7000 is a very hefty base to have. Another thing with Gardramon is the 5 to play is actually a relatively low cost for what you're getting out of him. So there have been games I will start off Digivolving my egg and then just hard playing a Gardramon. That is very difficult to get over early game. They're typically going to want to Digivolve further beforehand. Our next Digimon is going to be our Digivolution target, Greymon. Greymon is 4000 DP, 4 to hard play, 2 to Digivolve into, and he gives the inherited ability during your turn when the Digimon has Reboot. They will also get Jamming. If you're unfamiliar, Jamming says whenever you attack into security, you are not going to be deleted. That allows you to get in attacks without the fear of losing that Digimon in battle. To round out our 4s, we're going to be playing 4 copies of Numemon. Numemon is a level 4 with 3000 DP, 3 to play, 1 to Digivolve into. You're going to be playing him for a lot of the same reasons you're playing Gorellamon in blue. He's very cheap to get onto the field, very cheap to Digivolve into, and is a stepping stone for better things. And then late game, when you just need bodies on board to be able to swing later, you call him down and just start punching with him. He is a very reliable Digimon for that. To start off with our level 5s, we're going to be playing 4 Metal Greymon. Metal Greymon is a 7,000 DP, 8 to hard play, 3 to Digivolve into, and he does have Reboot. Reboot says, unsuspend the Digimon during your opponent's unsuspend phase. So that lets him stand back up. That doesn't do a whole lot for this Digimon by himself, but that does come into play with some combos we will talk about later. And he does give the inherited ability when the Digimon has Reboot, it gets security attack +1. He is 9 times out of 10 the Digimon you want to be Digivolving into as fast as possible to set up some very heavy hitting plays in the late game. But yeah, we'll go on to the next. We're going to be playing for Andromon. Andromon is a 7,000 DP, 7 to play, 3 to Digivolve into, blocker. There's not a whole lot to say about Andromon other than it's very important you do get as many blockers onto the field as possible, because the whole name of the game with black is keeping your opponent away from your security until you're ready to completely wipe out theirs. So getting a new Numemon onto the board and then getting into Andromon does a lot of damage. And lastly, this is a card a lot of people sleep on, but this is Megadramon. Megadramon is a very heavy hitter with 9,000 DP. He will typically be used to swing into your opponent's suspended Digimon who have already attacked during their last turn. With Agumon and Kapurimon, you can raise that 9,000 up to 10,000 and swing into higher power Digimon, sometimes even level 6s. This is very important, especially in certain matchups. Moving on to our level 6s, we are going to be playing 1, 2, 3, and 4 War Greymon. War Greymon is one of the most powerful black cards in the game, and he does stay that way for a while. With 11,000 power, 12 to play, 3 to Digivolve into, he has blocker and Reboot built in. This synergizes with the rest of the Greymon line very well, and it makes it so that you don't have to always go into Agumon first, because he does have that Reboot built in. There are a lot of games that he does a lot more than just block, but like I said, I'll go over that at the very end of the video when I start talking about combos. To round out our Digimon, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Machine Dramon. Machine Dramon is an 11,000 powered level 6 that costs 12 to play and 4 to Digivolve into. He has blocker built in, and then on play, you get to de-Digivolve 2 of your opponent's Digimon by 2. And what that means is you get to trash the top 2 cards of 2 of your opponent's Digimon. If it becomes 3 or less, it does stop at 3. This is a Digimon you want to kind of use as a spell. You want to wait until your opponent has something like Omnimon, or really anything that's really big and problematic. You play him down, and that will completely solve that problem for you. Now, I'm not playing Millenniumon in this deck. This deck does want to just kind of play mid-range and block as long as possible, and then swing off as much as it can whenever it's ready. But now we're going to be going into the more controversial part of the deck, our options. I'm playing 3 Atomic Ray. Now, Atomic Ray is a card you're not going to see a lot of. I've not seen many, if any, decks playing it when they top. It is a 3 cost whose main effect is to unsuspend one of your Digimon with blocker. Its security effect lets you unsuspend all of your Digimon with blocker, and they get 5,000 DP until the end of the turn. Your opponent walking into this security effect will normally be blown out for the turn and will not be able to do very much else. And then its other effect lets you unsuspend a Digimon. It lets you get an extra attack in with War Greymon, or if you happen to walk into a Flower Cannon. In my testing, one of the things that knocks this deck down faster than anything else was Flower Cannon. But adding Atomic Ray to the deck really solved that problem. Our last option that we're playing is Infinity Cannon. If Atomic Ray was controversial, this is not even in the ballpark. Black players are having a very difficult time deciding which options to play. I myself have chosen Infinity Cannon. Infinity Cannon is a 6 cost to play to trigger de-Digivolve 4 on one of your opponent's Digimon. This completely blows out Omnimon, or if your opponent has a problematic level 6, this puts them all the way back down to a level 3. And by doing that, it does make sure that you gain the upper hand whenever you are kind of in that downward slope. Revealing it from security is good, also just playing it is good. And the last card in the main deck is going to be 4 of our Tamer, which is Tai. Tai says, like all 4-cost tamers. At the start of your turn, if you have 2 or less memory, it sets it to 3. And then during your opponent's turn, all black Digimon get 1000 DP. And then its security effect is you can play it without paying its memory cost. The tie is really good because during your opponent's turn, it brings things like your War Greymon that are 11,000 to block with. It brings them all the way up to 15. That can stop anything that's not an Omnimon. And that becomes very problematic for your opponent as the game progresses. So, one last thing I do want to talk about is with these options, there are other options that you can play. Some people are really liking Spider Shooter, and it is a 3-cost to de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon by 1, and you can activate it as security. And then looking back on the good times, it is a 4-cost to play to de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon by 1. And then if that Digimon's cost is 4 or less, delete it. Both of these are very good in their own ways, but typically I have found if you want to resolve one of them by their security effects, the one you want to resolve is Infinity Cannon. And this is because it does put your opponent back much further than just de-digivolving by 1. For example, if your opponent is swinging in with an Omnimon, this is going to put them all the way back to their rookie level, rather than Spider Shooter or Looking Back on the Good Times, which Looking Back on the Good Times doesn't really do anything in that situation, but Spider Shooter will put them back onto their level 6. And that does still cause a lot of problems that you may have to deal with later, depending on what that Digimon is. So the last thing here I do want to talk about are some combos with the deck. If you have Toy Agumon, by going into Greymon, and then Metal Greymon, followed by Machine Dramon, you get a blocker that has jamming and security attack +1. So this does become much more devastating than just the blocker. This is typically not your ideal situation with Machine Dramon because he does want to be hard played in order to get the de-digivolving effect. But if you are kind of in a tight spot, you can play him down like this and use him to block. And then now that he has Reboot after he attacks, he'll come back online to start catching your opponent's attacks. And one of the more obvious plays in the deck is Greymon into Metal Greymon, lastly into War Greymon. This gives you a monster that does have security attack +1, jamming, reboot, and blocker to kind of get the most of everything Black has to offer and to get the most control out of your deck. But there we have it. This has been my Black deck profile. I really hope you liked it. If you have any questions, comments, or even concerns about the deck, you can definitely leave that in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of it. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you really like it, you can subscribe to see more. We're going to have a few more deck profiles coming up in the next few days. And if you adored what you saw here, you can leave me a one-time tip at my coffee. Link in the description. But thank you so much for checking out this profile, and have a great day. Bye.